Welcome back to the Six Steel City Rings podcast. My name is Ray Whiting, and thank you for tuning in. With me, I have Ms. Leanne Lohman, I have Mr. Bob Quinn, and Mr. Zach Franciscus. Guys, how are you all doing today?
Great.
Fantastic. How are you?
All right. Hey, before I get into this topic here, before I get into the topic, I want to give a shout out to Dr. Wiley. Where am I going with this? He's a doctor I'm being seen right now, not for mental reasons. I'm okay. Okay. And so he saw one of the episodes and he says, "Man, I love this. I love this. It's real nice." He said, "But I have one critique." I said, "What's that?" "I can't see your eyes because you wear glasses."
Oh,
Yeah.
is he
So,
offering you free LASIK surgery?
well, I'll have to
Does
think
he
about
want to
that,
become a
Leanne.
sponsor?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Well, we will sacrifice your eyes. If he wants sponsorship, you can go ahead and get the procedure done and talk about how great he is.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the episode.
Can you see?
I can see for the most part.
We're gonna do the whole episode with Ray like
See, you're wrong for that, Leanne. You're wrong. But I'm going to wing it today. So far, I mean, I
Okay.
can pretty much, yeah, okay.
All right, good enough. Glad to see
Guys,
your eyes.
on the menu, it just came out. The Steelers have declined the 50th option for running back Najee Harris. And I believe this is something major. I have my take on it, but what I want to do is before I give my take, and I believe between the three of you, you all going to say the same thing I'm going to say, and I'm not going to. Well, I'm going to shut up. So let's get it going. Najee Harris declined 50 option. Leanne, give me your thoughts on that.
Look, I'm a freaking homer. Everybody knows that I love Naj. I'm an Alabama fan. I was thrilled when we drafted him. So I'm trying to be moderate about this and reasonable. And I definitely recognize like the point of view of why you would consider doing this. Do you know what I mean? It's a totally new offense. You've had Naj paired up with another running back the past 2 seasons. It's made him a little bit more successful. He's definitely had his struggles, some dancing around and some running right into the defense and things like that. And so I understand where it's coming from and why you would do this. I just hope that it was conveyed in a way that lets him know that the team is really wants to keep him and we want to work with him and that things go well for him this year, because I think it's hard to blame Naj for everything that went wrong. I mean, he has become definitely a target from a lot of the fan base. And I don't know, I think some criticism is fair. I don't think all the criticism he receives is fair. There's been major issues with our offensive line, our offensive play calling, our quarterback, and you can't put all of that on your running back. And, you heard things being said, well, if your running back doesn't trust your offensive line to make a hole for him, then they are going to dance and they are going to have problems. And so I hope that this is done in such a way that it's, he's excited to show him what he's got this year. I also said earlier, he had this at Alabama a little bit with Nick Saban when he first got there. I think he thought he was going to roll on as a freshman and be the big dog, and he had to prove himself a little bit. And he's shown that he was capable of doing it at Alabama. I think he's shown he's capable of being a good teammate with Jaylen Warren, and I think he can show that he can handle this challenge too.
Bob?
I understand why they did it. I don't agree that they did it. Although, let's look at a team like the Chiefs, who last two Super Bowls. Isaiah Pacheco, they're paying him nothing. And, I hope the thinking isn't that, Jalen is ready to take over as the primary back, because I'm not sure he is. I think Jalen is awesome in a tandem. Love Jalen, love Najee together. I think they bring out the best in each other. But, the reality of the running back contract is even with, the option only being, $6.5, $7 million, yeah, you could draft a running back or pick up an undrafted running back for very cheap at this point. Now, it doesn't mean he's not under contract. And I've been kind of in the back of my mind wondering the last couple of months, because of all the people, unless you're trying to work out a long-term contract with him and it's totally fallen apart, of all the easy no-brainer decisions, announcing the option for Najee would make the most sense. But it kept dragging on, it kept dragging on. I started thinking in the back of my head, are they really, going to put him on a prove it deal and just whether he's great or not, just say goodbye? Because look at Saquon Barkley. It's, huge talent, often injured. He kind of got the bag a little bit from the Giants, but after 1 year, they, giving him the franchise tag, getting ready to sign him to another deal, they trade him off to Philly and give up. I mean, is that what the running back position is going to be from now on in the NFL? You got 4 years. We're going to burn you out on your rookie deal, and then good luck. Maybe if you're good enough, maybe somebody will pay you. Maybe we'll even pay you. But let's say they extended him 4 years right now. He'd be close to 30. What 30-year-old running back besides Derrick Henry is doing any good in the NFL? I mean, I think you have to go all the way back to AP to find a running back who really thrived after 30 in the last 10 years. So, am I disappointed? Yes. Do I understand it? I do, but I don't agree with it.
Now, Zach, before I let you go, let you start. You say you were emotional about this. So before you start, we're going to take a 2 commercial break, and we'll come right back. And I'm joking, man. I'm joking. Hey, give me your take. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I'm doing my very best to keep emotions out of it, and I guarantee it's not going to work because I've been watching the Steelers since '94 and paying close attention to the draft and the Steelers for about the past 20 years. When we drafted Najee, it was the very first time that I pinpointed a guy in the draft that I didn't just want to be a Steeler. I felt that if him and the Steelers came together, it would be something special. And when we drafted him, it felt like the right connection. And I always talk about with the Matt Canada situation and a lot of the drafts and things we've done before, it was the Steelers rewarding bad behavior. What annoys me about this, it feels like we're doing the opposite. Because Najee started out, his very first season was his best statistical one, but we have to take in the Ben of it all. He played with Ben Roethlisberger his rookie year, and he had 1,200 yards. He almost had 1,700 total yards that season. And he was consistent after that. But what people don't look at, he touched the ball less and less as he went in the 2021. He touched the ball. Where was it? He had 94 total, 381 touches in 2021. 2022, he had 313 touches. 2023, he had 284 touches. Consistently, we gave him the ball less, and his production didn't go down. He did exactly what we were asking of him when we gave him less to work with. We brought Jaylen Warren and we said, okay, we're going to put you in a two-headed monster. His production didn't go down. We're going to throw you the ball less. His production didn't go down. And now we're saying that because you're a running back, we're going to value you less. It frustrates me because it seems like this is the very first really bad move of the offseason. Everything was working
tip
well.
of like the running back complaint iceberg, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not just Najee, it's like all the running backs, and it's such a big issue. I mean, Saquon Barkley spoke out at it. Najee spoke about it when it happened with Saquon, the frustration that you're going to decline his option, but you really weren't going to pay him crap anyways. So
Exactly. And it wasn't going to cost us a lot. That's the frustrating. It was going to cost us less than $7 million. So what are we thinking in the future if Najee balls out? If he doesn't ball out, then we're not going to keep him, apparently.
Right.
But if he does ball out, how are we going to keep him for less than we're going to keep him this year?
That's the point.
Exactly. And Brooke Pryor was, from all the reports coming out, Brooke Pryor seemed to be the one that had the most positive take. Like, it's a wait and see kind of situation. And if that's the case, this better not just be a wait and see for Najee. This better be a wait and see for Arthur Smith too. This better be a wait and see on multiple people because Najee's done, like I said, everything you asked of him. And you said, okay, we're not going to run the wheels off you. We're going to give you the ball less. He had, with 1 yard difference from 2022 to 2023 in rushing, it was like 1,034 yards 1 year, 1,035 the next year, with like 50 less touches.
Just to interject real quick, Zach, Najee actually set the Steelers' rookie reception record.
Yes.
With Ben. So what I'm curious about though is, you said the thing about Jaylen and how they put him into a tandem. I think we forget a little bit his second year with Kenny and Mitch. Those first 5 or 6 games weren't good, and I don't think the Steelers wanted to put Jaylen into a tandem with Najee? I think they were forced to. Now, it's the best decision, as far as I'm concerned, they've made in a long time, because it got Mike Tomlin out of the three down back idea, and I think they've thrived together. But Najee isn't completely blameless in the fact that he got less touches. I mean, he kind of earned that. Now, he was hurt those first 4 or 5 games, so I'm not completely blaming him. But, you know, I think what you have to realize is once you get tandem backs, you need Jalen is not a 3 down back. He's not to me.
No.
My thing on my take on this is the last time the Steelers had a good running back was Le'Veon Bell. And Rooney said, we want to be a run first team. After he left, we want to be a run first team. So we pick up Najee. And like you said, Zach, Najee did what he was asked to do. Now, you draft a lineman in Fatanu. You have Isaac Siamalu. We now have a center. We have guards. And don't forget Broderick Jones. So now you have a good, solid offensive line to plow the road for the running back. And as much as we praise Omar Khan for his wheeling and dealing in the offseason, I believe this right here is going to be a huge setback in his decision making. Because again, why? I mean, we know about the money. We know that the money factor is coming, and it's a passing league. But again, Russell Wilson's 35 years old. Justin Fields, he's like, 20, 25, 26. He was fourth year in the league. So, he's pretty much fresh and new. He doesn't know the Steelers system. So, yes, you got to rely on the running back to help carry the load. So, why not have that 1-2 punch like Jerome Bettis and Fast Willie Parker? I mean, and again, and it goes back to the old saying about Pittsburgh. They don't want to pay anybody. To me, give Najee the money. I mean, why wait until he becomes a free agent and then you got to pay the market rate? Don't do what Jerry Jones did with Dak Prescott in Dallas, because you should have signed him a long time ago. Re-up, and that way it wouldn't cost you as much money. Now, I believe that if Najee has a good season, good, solid, productive season, let's say 1,300 yards, do you think come negotiation time, if the Steelers want to re-sign him, do you think Najee would give him a hometown discount? That's my question.
I wouldn't now. If he would have before, I wouldn't now. That's the thing. We've just soured the water. It's frustrating, and a little bit of frustration. It's kind of like what I asked the Steelers to do a little while ago. I'm like, guys, you got to take the emotion out of it. Don't be Big Ben. Don't be sentimental. I'm like, wait, no, I didn't mean Najee. Just no. I did. Just no.
Everything but that.
Exactly. Take emotion out of it, but no, Najee. So
I
feel
do think the Steelers are going to be on the forefront of another shift in the NFL. The NFL's always been kind of cyclical and has swung a bit like a pendulum. And I think we've been heavy in this passing league thing, and teams have been sizing down their defenses to deal with, the additional pass that's been happening. And I think that teams, including the Steelers, are going to start to capitalize on that and start to monopolize those smaller defenses and bully them and take advantage of them by beefing up their run game. And I think we'll see NFL offenses shift back towards run games. And I'm hoping that we're at the front of that freight train with Arthur Smith and this new offense. I don't understand if you're screaming from the mountaintops, we're a running team. We recognized our offensive line was terrible that first year that Naj was there with Ben, and they weren't good. And he would, and then he was injured and all of these things. And you saw him get better as the offensive line has slowly gotten better. Why would you not do this thing that is your most important running piece? Like this one thing that's your most important running piece, and you would chance losing him.
What I'm curious about is
after the season.
I think about do Andy Weidel and Omar Khan look at the Dallas Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks of years past, where the offensive line were just so good that they made the running backs. But Sean Alexander, the year he won MVP, was not an MVP running back. He ran behind a Hall of Fame offensive line. What it was Walter Jones, another guy on Steve Hutchinson, I think it was, on the outside, that you it didn't matter who was in front of them. You could have had any running back. So is there something going on in Pittsburgh that we're not seeing in practices, in the facility, that's they're saying, you know what? It's not Najee. I know you guys are saying it's Najee. I know what you're seeing on the field. You think it's Najee. We can actually put, I don't want to, I'm wearing Najee. I am a huge Najee guy. Got Najee back there. Nothing again, but this, I'm trying to think where the logic in Pittsburgh is, and
Fair.
I'm trusting everything Khan is doing, and I can't say I'm trusting everything and the direction it's going. But then this one thing, because of my emotional connection to Najee, is the wrong move. That's my problem. If I wasn't emotionally connected to Najee, I could say, well, you know what? It makes it very difficult for me to be okay with it. But I can see why. But they have to back it up. That line then without Najee has to produce the same that they did with him. You gotta back it up. So
now was Najee hurt
Well,
any last season?
No, not last year. I mean, there was talk that he was a little bruised and banged up, but he didn't miss any
Normal
time.
stuff.
Okay. Now,
Yeah,
Bob, here's a reason why I asked that question. I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but time will tell. I believe that if Najee were to get hurt anytime this upcoming season, I believe that will be leverage for the Steelers to say, you know what, we cannot resign you because of this injury.
Well,
No, my words.
well, if they'd picked up the option and he got hurt, there's the opposite argument. Like kind of what the Jaguars did with Blake Bortles back a few years ago. They signed him to his 5th-year option. He got hurt and basically missed the season.
Yeah.
So you paid for nothing. So especially with a running back position, do I think he's durable? Yes. The one thing we have to, kind of look at this point is we're Steeler fans. We love big bruising running backs, but bottom line is the NFL isn't paying anybody. He was 7th in the league in rushing last season. You know who was 6th? James Conner. Ring a bell? They're just not. The league has devalued the position, and it would be, I think we would all hold it against Khan at some point, kind of like we held it against Kevin Colbert and Art Rooney to some extent. That hey, you're playing 10 years ago football. It's not. That's not how they play anymore. I mean, they've changed the tackling. I mean, who knows what's going to happen next? I love that they approved the Guardian caps to be used in game,
Yes.
but at this point, does anybody really think anybody's going to wear them? They're already on. I saw on social media quite a few people. Oh, only a a sissy or whatever would wear this. No real man is going to wear that Guardian cap. They should mandate the Guardian cap. You want to crack down on concussions? Okay, let's take player safety seriously. Put some extra padding in the helmet. What's the problem? I don't get it. Um, back to Najee. I like that he runs physical. I think he hits the wrong hole sometimes. He's gotten better at that. I think Jalen has helped him with that. And we don't know what's going to happen with the Arthur Smith offense. Bottom line is, there's a lot of tandem backs that are going to get paid less than $7 million who were in the playoffs last year.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
Bob, I feel like you kind of checked me with that James Conner thing. It's like the Steelers before is like, listen, we're glad you beat cancer, James, but we're gonna move on. It's like if they're gonna move on from James Conner, there's no emotional connection to a running back that's going to keep them in Pittsburgh. And
I will say
I
that
don't know
about
why.
Pittsburgh. I think throughout the years they've shown that we, I said this the other day in an article that they're like Kenny Rogers. They know when to hold them and they know when to fold them. Do you know what I mean? They aren't keeping people any longer than they have to. And somehow they managed to find that sweet spot, whatever that is. They did it with Antonio Brown. I believe they did it with Le'Veon Bell. I know they wanted to keep him, but when it went sideways, they were out, and so I think that they've shown over the years that they can do this, especially with running backs and wide receivers. And so you're right, Zach. Maybe there is something else to this. Do you know what I mean? That we're not. I always assume there's stuff that we're not privy to. A lot of stuff that we're not privy to. So maybe there's more to it than that.
It just speaks
say
volumes
Le'Veon.
about the value of the position, because we were just about to be not okay with, but we were going to accept going into an offseason where one of our quarterbacks competing didn't want to back up the guy the season before. We were going to go into that with we weren't happy with it, but we were going to accept that, and then Najee doesn't get picked up. We were going to be fine with Ken. the value difference when you're talking about running backs and quarterbacks, that can't be right. There has to be some kind of fix there, but
It's
that's
wild
my
to me how much fans love running backs and how little the league values them. Like that blows my mind. That
Well,
blows
You
my
could
mind.
say
well, think
you
about
could say
this.
Le'Veon Bell broke the market
He
because
did. I think he did.
let's face it, what he was holding out for is basically what Christian McCaffrey is getting now.
Right.
But if he had taken the 13 million that the Steelers were offering,
Yeah.
he would have been the highest paid running
And
back. I mean, you look at
Andy
what
would have made more than he wound up making for the Jets. So he shot himself in the foot
Yeah,
and he shot the running back
and
market in
did.
the foot.
broke
Hey,
the market.
but here's the thing. Yeah, he shot himself in the foot. At the same time, I believe what broke the running back market was Ezekiel Elliott. Because remember, he signed a multi-year $90 million deal. And I mean, he didn't do anything that was worth $9 million worth of production. Less than, I mean, really. So I think that was the start of that. Also, I'm gonna go back into the time machine. Back in the early to mid 90s, you had Emmitt Smith, you had Frank Gore, you had Adrian James. You know, they had the big money then. They had big dollar contracts then. And receivers did not get that big money. But what started the wave of receivers getting big contracts, Keyshawn Johnson was one of them. And I remember, again, Randy Moss is from West Virginia. A good friend of mine who was close to him, and he said that when he found out that Keyshawn Johnson got that big contract, Randy Moss was happy because he knew that his production was far greater than Keyshawn Johnson. So he knew that when his time was coming, he knew he was going to surpass Keyshawn's contract. But what I'm trying to say is, yeah, it does go in waves. Back then, it was the running backs, now receivers, now the quarterbacks. And I believe you could credit Tom Brady for that. But like I said, now it's lost where the running backs they're just treated like a redhead stepchild.
And if it wasn't Najee, we wouldn't be looking this sad right now. That's the truth. If it was any, I mean, I don't remember feeling this way when James Conner left. I knew I felt like we were losing value, but this is Najee. I'm like, come on, it's Najee, and you just kind of you want that to be enough of an argument for them to say,
It
oh,
is so polarizing. I mean, I know I say that, and I mean, I get smashed on social media. I get smashed in the Steeler Nation group for it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like I don't know what it is about him that makes people look at him that way, because I'm able to set aside that somebody played for Michigan or whatever school, do you know what I mean? Ohio State, some school that I can't stand. Auburn, I can set that aside and understand that now they're just a Steeler, you know what I mean? And so that stuff doesn't matter. So I don't know if it's like that. I know there's a lot of people that dislike him because they dislike Nick Saban and they dislike Alabama. I've gotten a lot of that in my mentions, but I don't know. It's crazy to me because I think it's been primarily, not to say there isn't some blame to be placed on him. That's every player in the NFL has to own their part when things go south. Do you know what I mean? But I feel like he's tried to do that and is still so heavily criticized by fans.
You know, every
Because
former Steeler who leaves to go to another team, and when they come back to playing the Steelers, they have the extra energy. Just like the Cardinals game, James Conner,
Oh yeah.
he was destined. He wanted to prove a point to Pittsburgh.
Look at Kendrick Green.
Yes.
For God's sake. I mean, he blew up the world that one game and then got injured, did nothing else for the rest of the season.
Yes, exactly.
Point,
and I believe, I mean, again, if we do the same thing to Najee, it's gonna be the same thing over again. And then the fans, they're gonna look stupid and say, you know what, Omar Khan, why didn't you? Who to blame? Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, but let's face it. What running back goes on to a second contract with another team in the modern NFL and explodes? I mean, generally, if they flip around, did DeAndre Swift have a nice year in Philly? Yeah, they thought so much of him they traded for Saquon Barkley. Is Saquon Barkley going to have a good year in Philly? Probably so, but that doesn't mean in 2 years they won't move on from him.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
Nick Chubb.
Nick
They
Chubb,
kept-
what? He's still with the Browns.
Yeah, but he has a second contract, and look at him.
I
But
said
that's
gone
a
to a
different team,
second
I
team.
think.
Yeah,
Right, like a different
Yeah,
team.
so you do what, and you know, I hate to be the guy who says this, but let's face it, Nick Chubb's second contract isn't going to look like a good investment if he can't recover from that injury.
Agreed.
You know, do I hate that he got injured? Yes.
Sure.
Do I think it was a dirty play? No. But reality is, you paid a running back for a second contract who lost all of last year now, or most of last year, and now very well could lose most of this year. I mean, I
That's the
hope it
risk
comes
of the
back, but
NFL, though. That's every position, that's every player, that's the risk you take. I mean, it could happen, unfortunately, knock on wood, to anybody. Do you know what I mean? There's no guarantees.
This is one I don't see an upside to this because yeah, there's no upside. So I want to find it. I know I'll find some logic in the future, but if it works out, I don't know the up. Yeah, so there's no
well,
upside.
let me ask you a question, though, Zach. Let me ask you a question about it. Okay, so Russell Wilson is a 1-year deal as of now. Justin Fields is not past this year as of now. Najee is now not as of now. If they go out and have a great season and the offense looks awesome, they'll figure out a way. I have faith that Omar would figure out a way to sign all those guys back
Agreed.
without paying over and above. But if they tank, if Najee doesn't have a great year in the contract year, if Russell Wilson doesn't, if you got to rip it all down at the end of this season, now at least you don't have to rip it all down and hold on to parts that, you know, maybe that's why Pat hasn't got extended either.
Maybe that's the thinking. He has a great year. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to want to move on if the team's done really well. Then you retain Najee. You work out a way to retain the quarterbacks, which is what Jerry Dulac seems to think they're going to do anyways. And you retain this whole group and you keep them there and you go on and you win a Super Bowl. And Omar Khan looks like a genius. Do you know what I mean? At the end of it, maybe it's, you know, we can't see. We're standing on our balcony. We can't see the whole building right now.
Well, my problem is that with Omar Khan, he's come in and we've heaped a large amount of praise on him for not winning a playoff game yet. And so I'm saying he's asking for pretty much the entire content of my trust bank with him for me to trust this is going to work out. And that's asking a lot. That's pretty much saying all the goodwill Omar Khan has built up, I have to kind of risk for this one move because I have to trust that if it works out, number one, Bob, that financially we're going to be able to make all of this work. That all these suddenly amazing players that would have contributed to it. What if we win multiple what if we're in the AFC Championship game? But what if that happens all of a sudden? Like we're all happy.
We'll know where to.
But the finances, if teams that win Super Bowls always, unless they're the Chiefs, apparently, always end up losing players. Steeler teams get ripped apart afterwards.
Well, the good thing for Pittsburgh, though, one thing to remember, Zach, is we have, I think it's over 110, but I know it's over 100, over $100 million in cap space available next season. So if he has a great year, if we pay one or both of the quarterbacks, we got the money to do it.
Right.
So financial wise, I think we're okay. Would we maybe pay a little bit more? I think we need to be very careful, and we've kind of talked about this before. Comparing Najee to the Dak Harris situation or Dak Prescott situation is quarterbacks are different. You're not going to pay more for a running back. If you end up paying more instead of paying him 7 in 2025, maybe you pay him 9 or 10. Bottom line is, if the franchise tagged him, that's probably what he would get. But the way the running backs are getting paid, it might be smarter just to sign a guy to a 4 or 5 year deal. You know, not even get the 5th-year option. Draft a running back in the 2nd round or the 4th round, or undrafted like the NFL is doing. When he gets to the end of 4 years, if he's great, franchise tag him. Great, here's $10 million.
Yeah,
I have a hard
tag him
time
again. Great, here's $12 million.
In the business world of the NFL, that after I want it to happen, I want to believe Connor will do it, but it's just hard for me to believe. Hey, Najee, you know we weren't going to pay you. Well, buddy, you came through for us this year. We're going to pay you more now. I can't see that happening.
Yeah, but
it doesn't seem to fit logic in the NFL, especially for a team that is doing what I'm asking, that's putting emotion aside, that is building the way they were supposed to. I don't want them to suddenly revert back to it after a good season. So like I said, there's no upside to this because my upside is keeping Najee for the long term and everyone being happy with that. I don't see that happening now.
Look at Swift and Philly. You don't have to look much further than that. He had a really good year last year. They moved on. They said,
Yeah.
okay, we can upgrade. We can get Saquon Barkley. Look at in the division. Who would have ever thought the Bengals would just say goodbye to Joe Mixon unceremoniously?
Yeah.
Never thought
Not that
that.
he's a prince among men, but he's done
It's-
a lot for that franchise.
Solid, solid.
Well, but now when you talk about Cincinnati, Bob, think about this. That particular year, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon. So, and I've said this to many Bengal fans because
He
they were
wasn't a
happy.
free
you know,
agent, though,
and I said
right?
somebody's gonna be left out. Somebody's gonna be left
Yeah,
out.
but he
And
wasn't a
and
free
they gonna-
agent.
Also, when you're
because,
looking at the amount of
team.
money that they're getting paid, like it doesn't even, you're speaking different languages.
Yeah.
You're paying one in
Right.
pennies and one in $1 million bags.
Yeah, loyalty is great. I mean, don't get me wrong, right? Do I understand from a human being perspective why
Sure.
you would do it? Yeah, I get it. But I mean, you look around the NFL. Tennessee let Derrick Henry go. He's a free agent. He's older. They let him go. I mean, the life cycle is getting less and less. 10 years ago, Derrick Henry would have retired as a Titan. 20 years ago, Derrick Henry probably rushes for 13, 15,000 yards. He's going to be lucky to get to 10, and we think
10.
he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I love Derrick Henry, but let's
King
face
Henry.
it.
That's
I mean,
what
There's
King
people
Henry is
making
what we call him.
legitimate arguments that he doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. I mean, that's, you know what I mean? That's where they are with Derek, of all people. Like, we consider him the gold standard right now, almost. And there's people that would argue he doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame.
But Bob, when you mentioned about Derrick Henry, keep in mind that his quarterback at the time was doing real well. You know, the passing game was complementing the running game. That's why he was, running all over the field. Then all of a sudden, you get a lack of quarterback production, and you had opposing defenses, put in the box and say, okay, run. That's the kicker right there. And so, of course, at a point right now, you have who's the quarterback? Will Levis. He's a
Will
rookie.
Levis, which is a
To me,
rookie
he
who
did
they
well. Even in terrible offenses, because he couldn't be stopped. I mean, he was dragging defenders behind him. I mean, yes, when the offense was better and the quarterback was better, his season went better. But to me, Derrick Henry was Derrick Henry.
He was second in the league in rushing last
Yeah,
year.
remarkable.
If you get a chance get a chance to watch the Pivot podcast with Ron RC, and he interviewed Derrick Henry, and Ryan Clark said, I guarantee you, he said, if I get to the line of scrimmage before you do, I'm going to stop you. Which is kind of interesting. So,
Ryan
guys,
Clark said that he would stop Derrick Henry.
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah.
He talks a lot of crap.
I like Ryan Clark, but I mean, he's way out in left field. He ain't taking down Derrick Henry one-on-one.
I'm taking partial to RC.
I
really
love
quick
RC,
last.
but you're talking like a baby lion taking down like a full-grown wildebeest or something. I mean, there's just Derrick Henry in his prime was seriously unstoppable. Absolutely incredible. Love to watch the guy play.
Quick last note on the running back thing. It's further proof of how far it should be from the front office because I legitimately believe Derrick Henry was the exception to the rule of a player you built a team around. I'm like, Derrick Henry is the quarterback of the running. He's the guy you build a team around. I thought he was different. Like if I was a Titans fan, I'd be crushed. Like I'm crushed now because it's Najee. How 2,000 yards? So that's my last thing on the running backs because the rest will pretty much be me crying.
Yeah.
I'll just sum up my thoughts on Najee. I think some of the grief he gets, which is unfounded. I personally never given him grief. I like him. I think the mistakes he made, with not hitting the hole were because of the first year with Ben where there were no holes, but they figured out a way to get him out in space, throwing him the ball. I think Steeler fans expected the bus. They expected pound the ball into the line. I'm carrying 9 defenders for 4 yards. And we got kind of a discount Le'Veon Bell, which makes no sense because of how big Najee was. And again, I like Najee. I would have resigned him. But, I think that's why a lot of the fan base don't like him. They were
We do
expecting a
that,
bus
though,
and they didn't get it.
with everybody. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what the player is. It's just, well, Jack Lambert did this, and Terry Bradshaw did this, and you're no Ben Roethlisberger, and we're no Antonio Brown. And I get that we have this long history of excellence, but we don't do ourselves any favor by comparing our current players to players of yesteryear, because they aren't the same.
Hall of Fame players.
Right. And the game is not the same. Do you know what I mean? So sure, you can put as many memes up as you want about what Mean Joe Green would do in today's NFL. It's nice and all, but he's not in today's NFL, so it's irrelevant. And those arguments from fans are so tiresome.
Guys, we're gonna stay on the offensive side of the football. Let's talk about the offensive production. What do we expect this upcoming season? As a Steeler fan, we want excellence. We want perfect. We want flawless. We want more points on the board. Again, I'm getting sick and tired of Steelers driving down the field, looking real good. Then all of a sudden we get into the red zone, and all we get is 3 points out of it. And most of all,
Yes.
I like what the Steelers did. I like what the Steelers did in the draft, because again, they have finally addressed what they need. Think about this: Bartanu, Zach Frazier, then Roman Wilson. Your top 3 picks, offense. And that's something Pittsburgh have not done in a long time. Share your thoughts.
I would say go ahead, Leanne, because you wrote the article on
yeah,
this.
then I'll go. I did an article the other day. Brian Baldinger was on the Fans Morning Show, and he was talking about they asked him what his expectations are based on this draft group we've had and the quarterbacks we've had. And he came right out and said, he expects us to double our production this year in passing touchdowns. He was speaking specifically of the passing situation regarding Russell Wilson and this new offensive line. He thinks that, that they're going to make all the difference. They're going to help kind of resurrect Wilson's career. Wilson is going to kind of resurrect football in Pittsburgh. And, I think for some people that may not seem like a lot, but, with what we suffered through last year, that 30 touchdowns feels huge.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, that being said, a lot of things still have to go right. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields have to play better than Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky. That's a low bar to clear. But they also have to play better than Mason Rudolph, which, let's face it, even though he's a backup at Tennessee now, that was a pretty high bar, those 3 games. Now, I don't think Mason Rudolph would have maintained that long term. So I do think that Russell Wilson and the Justin Fields will do better. Double the production might be a little bit ambitious, but it really depends to me. Is Roman Wilson that second wide receiver? I know Bryant McFadden has caught a lot of grief over the last couple of days for saying that, there's a big playmaker coming, and then it kind of didn't happen. But it doesn't mean it won't. It just means that, okay, he got bad information. He ran with it. It happens. People get things wrong. And now all of a sudden, Roman Wilson is your number 2. I want Roman Wilson to be another number 2. I mean, barring trading for, really a top 5 receiver like a Terry McLaurin or a Devontae Adams, which doesn't look like that's going to happen, but they're flirting with it. The Ayuk Debo Samuel. Yeah, if a guy like that comes along, of course, especially if you don't have to pay him top of the market money. I mean, the Devontae Adams, he's due $44 million. I mean, I would like it, but I don't see how we could afford it going forward.
Yeah.
If Roman Wilson is your number 2, you can evaluate the offense. Next year, you got Pickens going into a contract year. If Roman Wilson is productive, if everything looked good, you've got all that money to sign all those guys. Okay, maybe we do double the production. If we do double the production, obviously we'll be great. But I want to wait and see game 1 next year. What do we see? Do we see 13 points? Do we see, okay, well, we gained 400 yards, but we didn't do much? I don't think we'll see that, but we're so damaged with Matt Canada. I think we have, no offense to Arthur Smith, we got to see it on the field.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm so glad you said the C word, the Canada of it all, because you cannot discount what that took away from us last season. And you talked about Mason Rudolph. I think it was more impressive what Mason Rudolph was able to do in Matt Canada's playbook because, yeah, we changed coordinators. He was still in Matt Canada's playbook, and Mason Rudolph did amazing. I don't think there's any way we can't make a major jump forward. I mean, our offense was scoring right around 18 points a game, and our defense was allowing right around 19, something like that. We're going to do better than that, even if people don't excel. Even if we get just game managers out of both of our quarterbacks, we're going to just do better. When it comes to Pickens, Bob, I'm so glad you said the Terry McLaurin of it all, because we get enamored with big names and we get lost with what George Pickens was able to do in a Matt Canada offense last season. Justin Jefferson, 2023, 1,074 yards, 5 touchdowns. Stephon Diggs, 2023, 1,183 yards, 8 touchdowns. Terry McLaurin, 2023, 1,002 yards, 4 touchdowns. Pickens in 2023, 1,140 yards, 5 touchdowns. Not just in there, right around the top in a Matt Canada offense. Arthur Smith doesn't have to blow the doors off. He can work towards that. We don't need immediate amazing. We just need better than last season. And like you said, Bob, that bar is so low. Everyone tripping over themselves would still clear it.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair point, and I agree with you. I think that for Russell Wilson, he's come into this. He threw 26 touchdowns in Denver last year, so we're talking about 4 more than that. We're saying he's got better. Bollinger saying he's got better weapons here in Pittsburgh, should have a better offensive line, should have an offensive coordinator that's developing a scheme that more suits him than what they were trying to do in Denver, was kind of jam him into an offense that he didn't fit in. And so I think if those things happen, I feel like Russell Wilson has a lot to prove. He wants to stay in the league longer. He wants to keep playing. I think he wants to redeem himself. And I think that counts for a lot. I think it counts for a lot. I think it's a big part of why Mason Rudolph performed as well as he did. I think he felt like he'd been dismissed. He finally got a chance, and I think that he felt confident in himself, and that translated to on-field production. And my hope is that we see something similar to that from Wilson when he comes out this year, that this system fits him well, and that he is able to kind of redeem not only himself but us too.
Dr. Wiley, I had to put my glasses back on to read this right here.
The thing with Wilson and Fields is they were sacked a lot last season. They were the 4th and 5th most sacked quarterbacks in 2023. So what I'm curious about, I don't believe if a quarterback is suddenly not sacked, he becomes a better quarterback. I think we get to see what kind of quarterback he really is when he gets that little bit of time. What is your muscle memory going to do? What are you falling back on? Is what you're falling back on Pickett? Or are we going to see the Russell Wilson that knew how to game manage? So we're going to keep these guys upright. We've made sure of that. We've done heavy investments in making sure the running game, I want to make sure that happens. But if I talk about Najee again, I'll just get sad. So we're going to keep our quarterbacks upright. And I'm really curious to see, because with Tom Brady made his receivers into stars. Other than Randy Moss, they weren't stars when they came to him. He made them. Wes Welker was a failed Miami Dolphin project. And he came there and he became Wes Welker. So I want to see, can these guys make all these guys who were like, it's Van Jefferson, it's Calvin. Can he say, hey, I got a quick guy like Calvin on the outside, a couple short and guy like knows what to do with those guys like Kenny Pickett didn't. We cannot help ourselves but to improve in 2024.
It's hard because we haven't seen Arthur Smith actually run the offense in Pittsburgh yet, but I do think that he is more known to get the ball out quickly, and I think that's something that Russell Wilson and Justin Fields struggled with in their last 2 teams. But again, very different kinds of offensive schemes, and so I think that this caters to playing to their strengths while hopefully minimizing some of what are their weaknesses.
Guys, speaking of offensive production, think about this right here, Zach. I'm gonna piggyback off what you said. You say the offense averaged around 17 points a game. Yes, 17.9. The points, they put up a total of 304 points this past season. 300. They average 304 yards a game. Now, they pretty much revamped the offensive line. We're talking about offensive production. how much more do we want to accomplish? Because again, Broderick Jones, you have Siamalu, you have Fatanu, you have Zach Frazier, James Daniels, Nate Herbig, and of course, at some point in time, Dan Moore Jr. He's going to be shown the door.
Well,
The-
I actually have a
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
Oh,
thi-
yeah.
this right here, this is going to be the telling tale. You know, if they don't come within, I'd say probably the top half of the league, the top half, we'll say 16. If they don't, then it's going to be a conviction on Tomlin. Now, Arthur
well,
Smith,
I,
he'll get a pass. Arthur Smith will get a pass because this is his first year, but it will fall on Tomlin's shoulders.
Well, weirdly enough, that we don't need to reach that far up. Kansas
Yeah.
City is the golden standard for what we need offensively. Kansas City averaged 21.8 yards, 21.8 points per game last season. 21.8. That doesn't fly off the page at you. That's what, like, if we do 3 points per game better in 2024, we do better than 2023 Chiefs. So, but their defense only allowed 17.3. That was third in the NFL. Defense wins championships. You have an offense that can get out of its own way. Defense wins championships.
Defense
So-
does
Kind
win
of snap
championships.
Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball too.
Right, exactly. But you know, defense does win championships, Zach. But like Bob just said, when you put the ball in the hands of Patrick Mahomes, you know, he could put up more than 21 points in a game. So the thing is, can the Steelers match that type of intensity? So time will tell. But like I said, we just
Well,
I just hope we
here's
get some damn good production out of Najee.
Well, here's the one thing you got to remember. Okay, this all double the production. Steelers play more one-score games than anybody else. Okay, the focus here needs to be for the offense and Tomlin, Smith, whoever's going to be responsible and take ownership of this. The Steelers need to stop playing one-score games. I mean, point differential will make a huge difference for them. We have a good defense that can hold teams down, but 17 points. We average 17. We give up 16. Okay, field goal here or there, and you've lost the game. Field goal here or there, you win the game. It's there's a lot of. Eventually, that streak is going to snap. Steelers have been awesome in one-score games with Ben, with Kenny. It's going to snap. So start playing a little bit wider out. And if Arthur Smith's offense can hold the ball and make the game 20-10 in the last 2 minutes, and it ends up a one-score game because the other team
That's
scores
different.
a failed onside kick and we win, we kneel down. I think about over the last, even with Ben, think about over the last few years. When were we kneeling down to end the game? No, we were either holding on for dear life as fans while the defense drove down the field. Defense tried to stop the last minute drive down the field, hoping like heck we get in field goal range for Boz.
Get an interception, something.
Bob, you're right.
Yeah,
And Bob, and here's another thing. You know, how many times, I mean, think about this. You're on a defense and you ask yourself, damn, how many damn times we got to get on the ball in the field and we got to save the game for them. Prime example, the damn Tennessee game. And everybody knew what Tennessee was going to do. And remember that last play of the game, Quan Alexander had that interception right in the middle, at end zone, saved the game. So, yes, the Steelers relied on the defense too many times. And again, to average 17.9 points a game from the offensive side of the ball, again, that's unacceptable. So, yes, Arthur Smith and offense have to step their game up, put more points on the board, give less 3 and outs, less turnovers, give the defense a rest.
Let's not discount Mason plays 2 games, when he comes off when they turn the overtime, puts up 64 points. George Pickens puts up over 300 yards receiving in 2 games. A lot of the offensive numbers are really skewed because of how well Mason did at the end. It was a lot worse. So if Baldinger's talking about doubling up Pickett and doubling
Yeah.
up Mason or Mitch Trubisky, yeah, it's going to happen. I don't like Zach's point. I don't think there's any way it couldn't happen.
Yeah.
But if we start throwing in Mason's numbers, all of a sudden doubling up doesn't look so easy. I
Well,
think we
I don't
can match.
that doubling up. I would love it. I would love if we double up. But the Chiefs scored over 30 points twice last year and over 40 once. The Chiefs didn't blow people out. They scored consistently, and their defense shut other people down when they needed to.
And they
That's
possess the killer instinct. Like they don't let their foot off the
yes.
gas pedal.
And Ray, what you said about relying on the defense, we should, and this defense wants to be relied on. Number one, they are the most expensive defense in the not among them, the most expensive and heavily invested in defense in the NFL of the Steelers. They know they're going to be relied on. So these guys, and they want that. It's a prideful defense that knows what happened last year was not acceptable because last year they
have
were
to
the
have
most
time off the field, though. It's not fair to rely on them if by the time they get to the sideline, they're turning around and putting their helmets back on to go right back out like they were with Kenny.
Exactly. So I will agree that we did rely on them way too much, and that's what ended up breaking the defense. A lot of people put it on the defense. I'm like, they were exhausted. I mean, look what they did when they were exhausted. Imagine what we can do. And Landon Roberts had half a leg and half an arm most games. So and what are we gonna do when we get a breath when it's not I love that we're bringing Mason Rudolph up. There was so much emotion in those games. There was so much. Oh, we're free of Canada. Oh, we can. I want to see even keel because the people were always like, oh, well, one thing about Kenny Pickett, he was a winner. No, Kenny Pickett knew how to play in one drive or two in the fourth quarter. That's what Kenny Pickett did. He woke up, said, oh, threw the football a bit, and in the fourth quarter was the only time he came alive. I want 4 quarters of football. I want consistency. I want to go into games feeling like we can really win this rather than, oh, I hope we don't lose. And I feel like we can do that.
Well, I think it's deeper than that.
I'm sorry, Bob,
because I think it's deeper than that because if you look at Matt Canada was fired before the Cincinnati game. Kenny played one game, got hurt. We were without Matt Canada for Arizona, New England, Indianapolis. The problem is we have Mitch Trubisky on the field. So, I think there was more to it than when Mason came in. We were free of Mitch. They were sort of free of Kenny. And all of a sudden, the receivers had confidence that, okay, well, at least he's going to throw it downfield and I'm going to have a chance to catch it, versus, okay, look downfield. Oh, no. Take it, Jalen, take it underneath. So, yeah, I mean, I think Mason gets a lot of credit, but I mean, let's face it, basically all he did was play competent quarterback, which kudos, competent quarterback who looked down the field, who threw the ball downfield, who threw the ball in the middle of the field.
The one thing I can say for Mason more than anything is he gave the Steelers so much more than they deserved to get from him, considering how we treated him. That's what I will always say for Mason. The Steelers did not deserve Mason was better to the Steelers than the Steelers were to him. I will always say that. Now, I don't feel like we should have heavily invested in him as a quarterback of the future. I wish him well, and I hope he succeeds. But I will always feel like, Steelers didn't do as well by Mason as we could have.
Well, hopefully it doesn't come back and bite us in the ass. Hopefully it doesn't. Guys, our final.
He's a backup quarterback in Tennessee. It's not going to come back.
Right.
Yeah. And guys, our final segment, cornerback production. What do we expect out of the secondary? Guys, we know Joey Porter Jr., what he's going to do. He's going to be a lockdown corner. And this is something that the Steelers will have to think about in the near future when he becomes a free agent. And I'm sure he'll get a fifth year. They will pick up his fifth-year option and give him that money. But we also have to look at the other side.
Well, maybe in 3 years.
Huh?
Right.
Yeah, maybe in 3 years.
Yeah. So the quarterback, to me, I think if you look at right now, look at the depth chart for the defense, I see the only weakness right now will be the other side, the other cornerback position across from JPJ. Let's get a quick discussion about that. Leanne, what do you think?
I mean, I think we're a little bit dismissing the fact that we have Deshaun Elliott. I think there's some value there. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's just early to talk. I'm wondering if they feel like there's more coming from Trice. than we happen to know about. Maybe they feel like he's further along in his progress and we just haven't seen it. And I'm assuming that they feel like between him and Elliott, they feel like it's covered. And, we've got Joey Porter Jr. Maybe that to them makes them feel satisfied. Although I still don't discount the idea that we will find somebody else. Do you know what I mean? Whether that's a veteran at some point that we sign at camp or in between now and then, I still think there's a possibility we find somebody else.
Yeah, there's guys out there. I mean, if we want guys that are under 30, Adoree Jackson is
Yeah.
still there. I think Xavier Howard and Stephen Gilmore, if we want those, proven veterans to come in and be what Patrick Peterson couldn't be last season. Because Patrick Peterson, when he needed to fill in at safety, was good, but I had such high hopes and it was a liability. So
Yeah.
from everything I've seen, he seems like a really nice person, but I don't want him on the football team. Is that it didn't work out the
That
way it
sounds
did.
familiar.
It just didn't work out, and I feel like Joey Porter could have grown more if Patrick Peterson became what we hoped he would have become for us. A multi-year mentor that, finished his time out in Pittsburgh and all that, but it didn't end up working that way. But I agree with Leanne. There's plenty of available cornerbacks out there. We don't know what we're getting out of Trice. We have Beanie Bishop Jr. Maybe he'll become a big
Yeah,
fun guy.
about Beanie.
My father-in-law is so excited about Beanie Bishop Jr. West Virginia. So we got some West Virginia guys on our team.
Terrence Garvin, who's a West Virginia grad, so you expect it from him a little bit, but he went on and on about how he fully expected him to be drafted. He was shocked he wasn't. He thinks he's going to definitely make the team.
There are plenty of reasons for us, especially with cornerback, to take a breath and say, it's going to work out in some way and enjoy JPJ.
Well,
Hey
well, in
guys,
typical Steelers fashion, when we start to think, okay, we have a prototype. We're getting long, tall corners. We have Dante Jackson, who's 5'10",
Right?
best guys in the NFL, but he's still 5'10".
Yes.
Beanie Bishop is 5'9".
Yeah.
I
He's
think
a
he
little
could
guy.
be a really good slot cornerback, but he ain't playing on the outside.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's not
and
the
if he
avatar.
is, yeah, if he is, there's a problem. Darius Rush and Corey Trice kind of meet the avatar, but we really don't know what we're going to get. Darius Rush is on his third NFL
Yeah.
team. Corey Trice is coming off a major injury. So I think before we start asking what the cornerback position is going to do, we ought to start asking who is going to play quarterback.
Yeah.
Zach
I
brought up
feel
a
more
couple of names.
confident about Trice than Rush.
Yeah. Well, they both Rush was ahead of them in the draft evaluation
Yeah.
process, so it's hard to say, and it's hard to say what's what. I think Rush he was a little undersized. He was kind of like that Emmanuel Forbes model. He wasn't quite as fast as Forbes, a little bit heavier, but still, you get a 6'1" cornerback who weighs 175. You got to start wondering, can he really tackle? He might be able to cover, but can he tackle?
Yeah.
And then Trice is huge, and I honestly would see Trice becoming a safety, although they took Watts, and I think that maybe the plan is for him. But the guy Zach brought up, Stephon Gilmore, former Defensive Player of the Year, Pro Football Focus, who we all hate as Steeler fans. Let's get the disclaimer out of the way. But they have him as the 35th best ranked quarterback in the NFL last year. Pat Pete had a good year the year before he came to us with Minnesota, but Pat Pete's a Hall of Famer. Gilmore's a Hall of Famer, but Gilmore is probably for his career just a tiny bit better. They're the same age. I think I would be okay with rolling the dice on the former Defensive Player of the Year coming off the 35th ranked corner to be my cornerback too. And then hope that one of these other guys throughout the season can take that job away from him as he ages. But, there's some other interesting names.
Say they don't sign anybody else. We get to camp and we're clearly not signing anybody else. Are you okay with them bringing Pat Peterson back on like a veteran, team-friendly, low contract? You know what I mean? For another year, or would you rather roll with what we've got?
Well, I mean, if we're paying him a couple $1 million, then to stand on the sideline and potentially be the dime cornerback, yeah, I'm okay with that because I think he is a quality person who helps your locker room. I just don't think, like Zach said, I don't think he can play.
Yeah.
I mean, he can't be the nickel. He can't be the
I
cornerback
thought it
too.
was great for Joey Porter Jr. being this like mentor and this veteran presence for those young guys. I thought he was great for that, but
Well, a little bit of a hot take here. I think what we can't undersell about Pat Pete, and yes, mentor, good guy. I mean, just all around. I mean, the guy's a Hall of Fame person and a Hall of Fame player.
yes.
But I think the best thing he did for Joey Porter was play bad enough to put Joey Porter on the
Force him in.
field and learn his
Really
rookie
good
year.
point. That's a really good point. To kind of
That
force
is-
Tomlin's hand to play him some more.
Yeah.
It's true.
Because you know, if
And
Peterson had played like just good enough, like, B- level, he would have stayed in. Do you know what I mean? C level, he would have stayed in and been
Just
mediocre.
off experience alone.
it's true.
Yeah,
And from what I'm wondering from Tomlin is if he's gonna do what we're kind of need to do with this is take a breath. And competition is Tomlin's favorite word around this time. And he's got a slew of people here, all with potential. So I think before we want to sign someone, we want to feel better about the position. He might look and say, you know what, any one of these guys could be the next guy to step up for me. And let's see when I throw him into the fire, who's going to prove it. And if none of them do, then sure, let's talk about bringing someone in, Pat Pete, because he knows the play. But let's
Two
not
dogs,
get
one
ahead of
bone.
ourselves. Exactly. Let's not get ahead of ourselves there until Mike Tomlin see what the competition look like. And if there's no one there, then I'll trust whoever they decide to bring in. Xavier Howard is a little taller than everyone else. And I have a
Yes.
lot of Miami Dolphin fans in my family, so I've gotten to see up close from a personal and then a professional level. He's 6'1". I like what he would bring from a veteran level if Pat Pete wasn't the option. So and Bob Stephen Gilmore, there's no bad options if we get to that point. I'm just hoping that we have enough on the entire roster right now that we don't have to get there.
Well, I'm gonna get my weekly Tomlin knock in. Just Artie Burns, Justin Lane, some of the guys defensive, and bear in mind Tomlin cut his teeth as a secondary coach, so the defensive backs should be over the last 20 years or 17 years should have been a lot better than they have. I mean, Ike Taylor was phenomenal. I mean, but it's always been we got one and then maybe not so much. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to kill him too much because you don't know what these guys are going to do when you put them on the field. But you would think evaluating the position, we'd be better at it with his experience coming from Tampa and over the years. It always seems like we can find one, we can't find two. That being said, an interesting guy to keep your eye on, J.C. Jackson. Yeah, he's been terrible the last 2 years, really bad. But 3 years ago, before he got hurt. He's an all-pro, undrafted free agent who got signed for $82 million, made a bunch of money, and went to San Diego and was gone in a year and a half. And then New England released him. So that's the kind of guy that typically Tomlin likes is that, hey, you were an ascendant player, you fell off. That's typically the kind of free agent guy he likes to bring in. I also wouldn't count out. I love Xavier Howard, and if we don't go with Gilmore, that would be my second choice. There's an interesting name out there, and he's an undrafted free agent. And I love what this guy did. And he was Ray's last pick in the mock draft, Sean Stevens.
Oh yeah.
He's a little bit undersized, just like he's the same size as Beanie Bishop. He's not an outside corner, he's a nickel corner. But I haven't heard of a guy doing this before, and I'm sure somebody has. It's just I haven't heard of it. He signs up to go to the Philadelphia Eagles minicamp and the Pittsburgh Steelers minicamp. So he's doing everything he can to get on the field, and you got to love the tenacity. Yeah, you got to love the tenacity of this guy.
I would do it. I would go to every camp I could go to. If I could schedule them one after another. I mean, you got to put yourself out there and promote yourself. Do you know what I mean? Because you got to be confident enough to do it, but not so cocky that you're positive that the first place you go will sign you. Because there's no guarantees.
Back-to-back seasons with 8 interceptions, even though it was Division II, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
I mean, he's aggressive, got a nose for the ball. I mean, he's gone through so much. I mean, I would love to see him catch on. I'd really love to see him catch on with the Steelers. He's not the answer as cornerback, too.
No.
But he could be a really interesting nickel for
And
the,
that
you know,
offers
if
some
things break-
interesting variety with the players we've got to kind of fit them in and out of that second position based on the play call. Do you know what I mean? If Trice is healthy, with Elliott, and you know, so that gives some interesting options.
yeah, if
Guys,
Trice,
great talk today.
Go
Great
ahead, Ray.
talk. Great talk today. And again, I love this. I love this. Guys, thank you all for coming on. So much, I mean, so much we could talk about. Again, that's why we do this. Why? Because we love the Steelers and we hate the Ravens. You know, guys,
mostly the Browns,
what's that?
but mostly the Browns.
Oh,
Right.
of course. Yeah, definitely. Before we go, again, we'll give a shout out to Dr. Wiley. I had to wear my glasses for a little bit, but I took them off. So spread the word. And before we go, what should we all do?
Like,
Like?
share, and subscribe.
Yep.
Like, share, and subscribe. Najee,
Hit
see, still supporter, Najee.
Najee
See?
says
Hit the
like, share, and
notification
subscribe.
bell too.
And
Okay.
share social media, all the social medias. You get us on TikTok, we'll eventually be there.
Yep. Hey, and by the way, the first couple podcasts, we had a little technical difficulty with the comments. The comments are on. Leave your questions. We'll look at them. We'll answer them next week on next week's podcast. Feel free to hit us up on, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Reach out. We'd love to hear from you.
Yep.
And you can email us at 6steelcityrings@yahoo.com. That's SIXSTEELRINGS@yahoo.com. Down at the bottom of the screen. I am Ray Whiting, Leanne, Zach, Bob. Thank you very much for coming on. We'll
Thank
be
you
back
so
next
much.
week with some more Steeler talk. Y'all take care.
Bye.